I'm Sarah Woodbury, and this is my husband Dan, and we're going to talk today about Celtic Britain.
So I knew we were going to do this video about Celtic Britain this morning, and I was pleasantly surprised when I looked at my news feed and there was an article about Stonehenge.
Those weren't the Celts, though.
Oh.
That's okay.
Typical.
The Celts came roughly 800 to 600 BC into Britain. The people who built Stonehenge, which is roughly 3,000 years old, were an original inhabitants of Britain, who came possibly like after the last Ice Age.
Oh, wow. How do you know any of this stuff about the Celts? I mean, it's prehistoric.
Yeah, it is prehistoric, like Stonehenge is prehistoric. Stonehenge is Stone Age. The Celts are Iron Age. So there's one thing. Like there was a transition between 800 and 600 BC from stone to iron tools. We have evidence of that. And so that's archaeology. We also know what was going on because we have Roman records. So the Romans conquered the Celts in 43 AD, and they like to write things down. So we have all of that from their perspective anyway. And then the third way is through languages that still exist today and are spoken today.
So you're saying the three sources are archaeology, Roman records, and language. So what are the languages? What's the language stuff?
Right. So the Celts spoke a Celtic language, obviously, and what we have today are 5 descendants from that language. On one hand, we have Irish and Scot Gaelic, and on the other, we have Welsh, Cornish, and Breton, all of which are cousins, and all descended from the same original Celtic language.
Okay, and so I know Irish and Scottish are obviously, the Gaelics are spoken in Ireland and Scotland. Welsh is spoken in Wales. Cornish is
spoken in Cornwall. It is of those 5 languages the one that was almost wiped out.
Okay.
But it has making a comeback.
And Breton
is in Brittany. So much later, after the Romans.
So is Brittany? Where is Brittany?
In northern France. On the coast
Brittany
of
is in France.
It's in France, and so actually Brittany was established by some immigrants from Britain after the Romans left to escape the Saxons, which we'll get to. Okay. And they established a colony in Brittany and speak Breton, which is then also related to Welsh, to Welsh today.
So those are Celtic languages, and they've scattered everywhere.
Right.
So where did the Celts originally come from?
There are 2 theories. Suffice to say that the Celts who came in 800 to 600 BC originated in Germany and spread all through Europe, ultimately reaching as far as Ireland.
Okay. Did it come through the other islands to Ireland, or?
The specifics of that we don't know. What we do have good record of in terms of archaeology is a similar shared culture from Europe to Great Britain to Ireland at the same time. It's called the Latin culture. So a lot of the artifacts are related to each other or similar, as well as iron. So we can date artifacts
when they started using iron.
When they started using iron.
Oh, okay,
right.
That makes sense. So the Celts had this Agrarian Society, and everything's going fine, but the Romans showed up, and it was pretty much the beginning of the end for them, right?
Well, sort of true. I mean, once they were conquered, politically it was true, but not in point of fact. I mean, and the Celts fought back too. So the Romans first attempted to conquer under Julius Caesar, and basically he had this great idea he was going to conquer Britain, and got his ships, and they crossed the English Channel, and then there are the Celts on the cliffs of Dover shouting at them and waving their shields, and they turned back.
Oh, really?
43 AD, they decided to give it another go, and this time it was successful, and they conquered most of Britain. But politically, overlaying over the top to tax the Celts, all administrative centers, all the leadership was Roman. But the Celts themselves, the people, continued about their daily lives, herding and farming,
and they're speaking their own language.
Speaking their own languages. There was cultural adaptations going on, and the influence of Latin into Welsh, and the beginning of writing, for example, which there had been among the Celts. But the Romans just didn't bring that many people. So it was a military conquest more than a cultural conquest like the arrival of the Celts had been.
So then when they pulled out, there was sort of a power vacuum.
There was a huge power vacuum, and actually the Saxons were the beginning of the end for the Celts, not the Romans. And so when the Saxons came, that was really a complete cultural transformation of England from what had been Celtic or Britain to Saxon.
That's cool. So what do you want to talk about next week?
Well, next week we get to do more Celtic Neolithic stuff. Bulka de Vine is a road dating back to Neolithic times that the Romans built over the top of and actually still exists today. It's still a road, and so we get to talk about that. If you like this video, click on the playlist or subscribe to my channel. There'll be a new video next week. And if you want to check out my books, click on the link to my webpage.